Hey everybody, welcome to another exciting episode of the Helm Developer Stand-Up. Today is February 20th, 2020. As far as announcements, there wasn't anything on the list. Is there anything anyone has for announcements that was not on the doc? Okay, let's go right into stand-ups. Let's start with Martin.
Hi. In the migration, delivered in the ability to set the kube context and the kube config on the fly. So it's good to have that capability in. Also, one of the community members found a really nice bug where, generally we have in our documentation, you can set Tiller to use the backend storage secrets. Normally it's set on the container spec command field, but you could also send into args the dash storage, and we weren't picking that up in the underlying library we had, so they found that, so we're pulling that in as well. So that was a nice nuance to find, because some people had set it up that way, and they just couldn't get their releases when they were trying to convert them across. So it'll be nice to get that in. I also pushed fix in for, and maybe we need to cut a release on this. So at the moment, installs, templates, and list. If there's an underlying bug, the error doesn't get propagated up and it fails silently, or nothing comes back. So it was just a small little issue with an error that wasn't being propagated up. So we might want to try and get that in. So there's two fixes there. One was the one I pushed in, and one came from a community member that found an issue in Helm list. So we might want to think about that. We can talk about that after. Apart from that, just looking at some triage and some reviews. So I will hand over to Fisher.
So for me this week, you know what? There's not actually too much for me to report on this week. I basically committed to reviewing a couple of PRs on the 3.2 milestone, so I'm going to be doing that this week. That is really it for me. I haven't been doing any kind of Helm related work or kind of investing in too much on that. So yeah, PR reviews for this week. Let's go to Mark.
Hey, so on my side, some of you might have known that we now have completion coded in Go in Helm. So I'm happy to say that I've posted it to Cobra. Works well, but I wouldn't hold my breath. The project seems to be very, very slow right now. There's very little participation. Besides that, at work, I'm working on Kubernetes 1.16, so we're not there yet, and I'm dealing with all the challenges that are being discussed on the Helm issues. So I was wondering if there's any recommendation or any documentation on how to best handle Helm when migrating to APIs that don't exist anymore. I kind of have my idea, but I don't know if you guys have a better handle on it, probably. So maybe in the stand-up week, not the stand-up, the discussion, we can talk about that. And that's it for me. Bridget.
With the typing and the unmuting, I will just put a link in here. I met with Reinhard this morning to work on our intro to Helm talk for KubeCon EU. So that's the main Helm related thing that I had going on this week. And when we have a draft of something to show you, then we'll drop it in here and let people in the meeting have opinions. Let's see if I'm just kind of like, Farina, do you have stuff you want to tell us?
Sure. I did a bunch of stuff on the Helm Hub, just merging in things like that. We now actually have a CI job somebody contributed. I can't remember who, but we have a CI job that helps lint some of our files. It's using GitHub Actions. I've been working through and finding issues. I've posted a number of feature things and some bugs this week because I'm doing next Tuesday, I'm doing a webinar on Helm security with the folks from Sneak, and I'm talking through securing the things, and I'm finding all kinds of usability issues in securing the things and understanding stuff. And so I'm working through those and firing them off. Like if you actually use the validating, right? You use verify when you install or something, where it prints out the message, it prints out a Go object. That's all garbled and usable. So we got a little bug there. There's a bunch of little things like that where you can tell there's some problems. So I've been finding all those kinds of things, and I'm going to start working through them. I also talked to Mark about the environment variables, XDG, and other stuff. So I've got a lot of things in my backlog to start coding and working on, fixing these things. But in prep for that next Tuesday, I've been mostly doing slides and just reviews and stuff like that. Who hasn't? Wait, where is the doc? Jacob, I see you on now.
Hey, I'm working on a bug with being able to update resources to new API versions that exist in the cluster. There's like several versions of what looks like a very similar bug. I'm trying to tackle a very specific subset of that. I've got a PR up that actually, unfortunately, it's going to not be as simple a fix as I was hoping. But trying to get that finished up, and I'll ping Matt Fisher and Martin since they've both looked at it so far once I have something ready.
Yeah, that's super interesting one, Jacob, because of the ramifications, and there is different variations, but we can talk about that then at some stage.
Yeah. There's, I think I'm gonna have to use storage version hash, which was introduced, and I can't remember exactly. It might be Kubernetes 114, which will test our backwards compatibility guarantees. I think we kind of really do want something that's going to work for slightly older clusters than that too. So I'm trying to like keep that in mind, but yeah, I might be writing an issue soon to talk about maybe another heuristic for ownership that we could opt into with a flag or environment variable. I think like we could simplify things a lot if we say we're just going to allow Helm to own resources if they have the app Kubernetes IO instance label and app label and managed by Helm labels already on them, then we should be able to just take ownership of them. That would be a backwards incompatible change according to our current behavior, so we'd probably need an opt-in flag, but honestly, that would by far be the most general and like easy to explain solution, I think. So
yeah, actually, we could potentially even look into that as just a lookup and seeing if that label is present on the object or something like that. And if so, then that could be the opt-in. And if that was present, then we could say that the user has opted into this feature, and now we take ownership and we can actually have more control over the object. So if we can't do that, then perhaps there is another way that we could potentially work around this for sure.
Exactly.
I think ownership of the object might be the right way forward for that.
Yeah, if we just look at our standard labels, then I think that's definitely a backwards compatible thing that would work with any cluster version that we want to support, even much older ones. So I'm going to look at storage version hash first and see if that would be the most correct solution according to our current like the way things currently work. But I'll write up an issue at least that we can discuss. Thanks. Adam, did you go yet?
Yeah, I think that just leaves me. So not too much to report this week. Just got some stuff, PRs reviewed, merged a couple. Also had a chat with Farina about XDG. And And that leaves us at discussion. So Freyna, restoring issue triage position.
Yeah, so I was talking to Dr. Butcher about a week and a half ago, and we run into collisions of people jumping into the triage or nobody doing it, or some people getting on really early in the morning every day and doing it. You know who you are. And we thought it might be good to restore the issue triage position so people know it's on them that week, and other people can help out, of course, and other people know I don't have to do it right now. What do y'all think about that?
I think it's a good idea. The one issue we had before was trying to get someone who would be willing to work on being an issue triager for the week based on who was present at the Helm dev call for that week. If we had a way that we could asynchronously, like say through the Helm core maintainers mailing list, that we could do weekly assignments for the next week and just asynchronously work with that, I think that would be a much better way, because while it'd be great to do that, it's some people just aren't always present at every Helm dev call, and so they may be available to do triaging for that week, but they may not be able to come to the dev call. So if we had some other way of including the rest of the core maintainers into the whole triaging Sherpa duties, that would be fantastic, I think.
So could we do a schedule your week? I like that idea.
Yeah, like a sign-up sheet. So you can check to see, is this, say you have a free or a week that you're not traveling and you're going to be in the office, then you can sign up for that week.
Do we have?
Then it's not like on the fly we're voluntolding somebody who hasn't done it for a while or something like that.
So for people who haven't done it for a while or haven't done it at all, to get them started, do we have docs that we can point to, or should we write some?
I think that might be a good idea to go forward, and then maybe a sign-up sheet is actually a fantastic way to go forward with that, because we have been using the weekly developer call minutes document for saying, here's the issue Sherpa, here's the moderator, here's the triager for the week. But what if we had like a little sign-up sheet that everyone could have like a little list, so that we knew who was doing the past few weeks of triaging? We could say, okay, someone has been doing triaging for the last 3 of the last 4 weeks, so maybe someone else should sign up and go for that next week. I really like that idea.
Okay, I agree that it's a good idea to have it be clear who's done it and who hasn't. I guess what I was saying is, I don't know that we have like a documented punch list of what it looks like to do the triaging. That's what I was trying to get at. Farina?
So yeah, it sounds like we need a practical piece of documentation that says, hey, you're the sucker who's doing it for the week. Here's what you need to know, right? Along with that, we probably need a sign up, and it can be Helm core maintainers, and it probably should be out of the gate. But the thing to also think about is that I think somewhere we gave permission so that anybody who's a maintainer in the Helm organization has that permission. So somebody who might not be a Helm core maintainer, but is totally open for it, may say, you know what, this week I want to go triage the Helm queue. And they might be good at that. Yeah.
Also, too, it gives an ability for people, if they're not maintainers, to do it as well. So in the past, we've done it without having the ability to set tags, but I could ping people and say, you know, this is a bug, this is whatever, but could put the comments into it. So it could go open to everybody, if, you know.
Yeah, I agree with that, because something else that was really valuable when new core maintainers are coming on, I'm actually thinking about you, Martin. When Taylor and I were first kind of shadowing you to go through the issue triage queue, I think you shadowed us or someone that was relatively new to the Helm core issue queue. We kind of went together and said, I'm the issue triager for the week. Do you want to shadow me? And I'm going to go through the issue queue for like an hour or so and just kind of triage the first few things.
Yeah, I stalked you, actually.
Sorry?
Yeah.
I stalked you for
yes,
for a long time. I stood outside your houses and things. So I don't do that anymore, I would like to say.
Thanks, Martin. I really appreciate it.
If we're gonna do this, I suggest that we just put the assignment in this doc where we put everything else instead of, and that doesn't mean we can't put an email out and tell people blah blah blah. It would be great if you sign up, but I'm suspecting if we have two different sources of truth of assignments for the week, we might not update one or the other. So
my only thought with that is it doesn't let you go out more than the next week. So maybe I know I can't do it next week, but I'm cool signing up for the week after that. It doesn't let you do that future schedule that Adam suggested.
Which I'm a little concerned about, actually, because we all are optimistic about the future when we're definitely not going to be busy.
That is so true. So how about this? May I make two suggestions? One, we just start by basically reinstating the role. Okay. And the second is we agree to write up some documentation. We can put it in the community section on the helm.sh site on, all right, you're the issue triager. Here's what you need to know, just like the release checklist. How does that sound?
Yeah, I think that sounds like fantastic first steps.
And I will be the first sucker.
And I volunteer to ask you questions about the docs that we write together, since I don't really know how to do it. So I'll have all the questions.
And when I do it, Fisher will come in and review it and tell me I did it wrong anyway. So don't worry about that.
It's hard to get stuff through.
I'm good with this topic now. We've got 9 minutes. We can do other topics too.
Add a news file to help with release notes. Mark.
Yeah, so let's not spend too much time on this. It's just there's an issue open, and I took the opportunity to respond to the opener that, or for you guys, it's mostly for you guys. I felt that there might be an issue writing release notes for the person doing the release. This is not the case, nothing to discuss. But I find that some of the release notes are not, they're too complex to write for somebody who hasn't done the PR. So I was suggesting somehow getting that information written at the time the PR is accepted.
Yeah, I put a comment on there saying I love the idea, but I would love to have us collect the information inside the individual PRs, because in their files or in the PR itself, just because like if you have a file people are supposed to go edit, you end up with merge conflicts.
That's true. That's a good point.
It might be helped by the fact that Paul has pushed a PR where he wants to generate the release notes. He's a script. So maybe,
yeah, it's a great script. It doesn't do every bit of this.
Oh, you're talking about the whole thing?
Another idea would be to add a headline on the PR template for release notes. Then
that's a really good call, because that way if we do find an ability to generate them, we'll have something to generate them off of. I looked at how they're doing it in Kubernetes because I was in the last cycle, I was on the release notes team, and like auto generating them is, yeah. Go ahead, Farina.
So if we have a news file, whose job is it to update that? Does it have to be updated with the PRs? How do we keep it up to date?
That's the thing, is like you can't get people to update a separate thing other than the PR.
Yeah, I think the comment or the PR template that says that the release notes inside of a comment or something like that would be a good way to do that, because the other thing that you touched on, Bridget, in there was merge conflicts. So if we merge a pull request that adds a release note in there and someone else also put in there something, and then we would basically come into the rebase conflict of hell every single time that we ever wanted to rebase a pull request that would conflict with another pull request. So I think a comment might be a better way to go forward with that. And then there was another tool. There's also the Kubernetes tool there, and I think that's honestly the best way forward. Another point of reference that I wanted to point out was in Deus, we also created a release tool that did a couple of other things as well, but one of the parts of it was auto-generating a release notes README and that would be generated from the change logs. That did not go to the pull requests and actually do any comments from there. And that code is kind of old. But that's also another place that we could take a look at for inspiration in taking a look at how do we want to generate release notes and how do we want to do that. So I'll drop a link to that in the comment as well, in that PR, or in that ticket, sorry. Just so we have another frame of reference so we can have more places to look for inspiration.
Yeah, and Paul C's script is awesome, but it doesn't do exactly what Fisher was just describing. So incremental improvements.
Thank you.
Good to move on. Okay, we have a number of topics left and 5 minutes. Is anybody really burning to get their topic discussed, or should we keep going down the list? No. Okay, what versions of Helm should be in the docs?
So I'll make this one quick. If you go to our doc site, we have 3.1, we have 2.16.3, and we have 2.14 listed as the versions. And I was wondering, why do we have 2.14? And what version should we have? Should we just keep the latest supported one? Are there reasons to have older ones? I was trying to find out.
Didn't Kubernetes have some major breaking changes in 2.16? I mean, I imagine that's probably why, but...
Nobody was able to answer the question for me.
Yeah, but we don't do breaking changes. Well, let's say never say never.
So the release process for doing the docs at a particular version was something that Ronan had been championing when we had been changing over from the Helm 2 documentation over to Helm 3. One of the ideas that he was interested in doing was having that versions drop-down list of each individual version, and so you could click between those. So I think at the time, Helm version 2.14 was the first release at that point where we were transitioning over from Helm 2 to Helm 3, and so that was the first version that he was interested in trying out. So I don't think he's had enough resources to be able to push that idea further forward and do that kind of infrastructure. But I think what the idea was, anytime a release came out, a new version of the documentation would be cut and released, and a new version tag would come up, and that domain would be released and everything else. I see Adam's hand up, so I'll let him speak.
Right. The only issue I really see with that is we're constantly making changes to the doc, which might reflect the entire version. Say we go and there was issues in the docs before. If we add them during a specific patch release or minor bump, then those doc changes won't be reflected in the earlier tag. You know, like even if we make typo changes, then they won't be reflected if we're building off a previous tag. So those doc changes could actually reflect an older version of Helm. And if it's the same major version, do we want those changes included? And are we going to start cherry picking doc changes? And like, to me, that just seems like it's going to be a lot more work there's worth. Yeah, Farina.
So Kubernetes does it with each minor release, but each minor release is a breaking change with Kubernetes. And so it's a little different. It's like the difference between us doing Helm 2 and Helm 3. That's the difference between like Kubernetes 1.15 and 1.16 because of the breaking changes. And so there's that extra level of complexity. And if Ronan doesn't have the time, does anybody else here have the time to drive into that extra level of complexity? Because for 2, it's kind of easy. The docs were contributed in the repo. I can look at a version. For 3, they're included elsewhere, which complicates it. So you're going to have 2 different processes, depending on major versions, have to do snap, right? You had something to say, Adam.
Yeah, but I already forgot it because I was paying attention to you and I just left my hand up. So keep going.
So maybe I make the suggestion that we remove the process for now and just have Helm 2 and Helm 3. In Helm 3, when we go to doc changes, we attempt to make sure that we specify the minor version those came in, so that if somebody's reading the docs and say they're using 3.1 and it was a feature that came in 3.2, they can tell that. Just that kind of thing. And then we just go to the 2 major versions. Yes, Adam.
Remember, another option would be to include a section for anything that's changed in the docs. So rather than have specific pages in entirety for specific versions, like if there was a change from even like a minor bump from a Kubernetes change, we could just include like a note.
Oh, I was thinking like I want to add GPG functionality, which is something we'll punt to a future conversation. When I write up the docs on how to use that change, I would note it in the docs that it came in version 3.2, right? Just right there so somebody knows, right? So when they're reading it, that's all I was suggesting.
Yeah, I think actually GoDocs started doing that, where if it was introduced in a minor patch, then there's a note right next to it.
Well, GoDocs is deprecated. It's going away anyway. So at this point, I think are we good on this one? I think I'm good, and how I know how to fill back into the ticket. Does everyone cool with what I had to say? Does it make sense? Is that good?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think the next steps forward would be probably to bring this back to Ronan, so then he's aware of this discussion as well, and he's aware of these concerns.
Totally. I will file. I already opened an issue over on the Helm queue, so I'll go ahead and follow up and tag Ronan in it to continue the conversation there. If he's got time to do this stuff and he's willing, more power to him. But I think the lack of anybody having the time to really chase after this and do this well should mean we don't do it for now. For now. So I'll shut up now so we can get our moderators and those things.
Yes. Do we have any volunteers?
Fisher, Taylor, and I will all be on site in Seattle at an internal Kubernetes event for Microsoft next week, Thursday, like all day. So I'm not going to volunteer, and I think possibly they should not either.
All right.
Does it start at 9 a.m. that day? Or
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we
It's
won't
like an all-day thing.
all
Yeah.
here at the dev call.
Okay, we just need moderator.
Right. So we have Josh willing to do
Yeah,
one.
I can do one or the other.
Sorry, I couldn't hear who that was.
Josh. Yeah, I can do notes
Yes.
or moderation, whichever.
Okay.
Whatever you're doing, Josh, I'll do the other thing.
Okay, I'll do moderator. It's been a while.
Not because I don't like you. It's just I let you do one.
I
thing.
understand. I understand.
All right, everybody.
Nice.
Yeah, but jokes are
Time.
going really bad today.
All right, we're at time, so I'll move the items we haven't discussed yet to next week.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye, y'all.
Josh.